this lesson we're going to look at doing something called rearranging the subject of the formula in an equation. And basically, what does the subject of the formula actually mean? Well, basically, whatever the formula is equal to is called the subject of that formula. So if you look at all these four equations that I've put on the board, as it stands at the moment, the subject of that formula is the letter C, because everything is equal to C. So what we're going to do is we're going to make one of the other letters the subject of that formula. In other words, in order to do that, we have to rearrange the formula, hence its title, Rearranging the Subject of a Formula. So what we're going to do, in each of these, I'm going to make the letter X the subject of this formula. If you develop these four basic skills of rearrangement, you'll be able to rearrange anything to make something the subject of the formula. Let's start with the first one. Okay? I'm going to do it like I'm solving an equation. All I've got is letters instead of numbers. But if I treat them in my head that they're just numbers and just use the same skills of solving an equation, but I'm rearranging, it would definitely work. So if you look at this one of these letters is out the way already, not causing you any problems at all because it's not on the same side as the subject. And that is the subject of the formula at the moment, the letter C. So all I've got to do is rearrange this so that I make X the subject of the formula. So the thing that I've got to get rid of is that plus A. Remember, the technique is to do the opposite. What you're actually doing is you're taking A off both sides of that equation to keep balance. So how do I get rid of plus A? I take A off, and lo and behold, in one simple move, I've changed the subject from the letter C to the letter X. And that's what rearranging the subject of the formula is all about. Let's do it for this one. C is the subject at the moment, so it's out of the way. How do I get rid of minus A? I do the complete opposite. I add A to both sides of the equation to get rid of it. And lo and behold, I have made X the subject of that formula. We go to this one. Remember, there's no sign between the letter A and the letter X, so that means times. How do I get rid of that letter A? Remember, the C is out the way already. Get rid of times by A by dividing by A. So X is equal to C divided by A. Finally, how do I get rid of this A this time to make X the subject of that formula, because C is out the way already? It's divide by A at the moment. The opposite to dividing by A is to multiply both sides by A. So X is equal to C times A, or A times C, it makes no difference. So the final answer, CA. Four basic skills. Master them, and you can master some very, very difficult rearrangement. Let's look at this one. I'm now going to rearrange to make X the subject of this formula. Notice the subject of the formula at the moment is the letter D. Why? Because this equation is equal to D. I've been asked to rearrange and make X the subject. So I want X equals something, or something equals X. Right, how am I going to go about doing it? Well, basically, I've just got to get rid of that, and I'll be left with X. Remember, the D's out the way already because it's already the subject. So what I'm doing is combining those four skills that I've just taught you in order to be able to rearrange. Remember how we do it? Get rid of this one first because it's not connected to the X. How do I get rid of plus B? I do the complete opposite, which is minus B. So AX equals, and remember you're taking B off here, D minus B. You're actually taking B off both sides, okay, but it's disappeared from here. So I've got minus B over there. Finally, I've got the A times X. I want to make X the subject of the formula. So how do I get rid of multiply by A? I divide by A. So X equals, and just remember we have to divide this whole expression by A. So either I've got to put the line extending all the way, or you could say, just to make sure, I'll put a bracket around it. It means I'm definitely dividing everything inside that expression by A, even though it's not actually required in this particular question. It will be in a minute when we look at one. You can have a combination when you're rearranging of numbers and letters. It doesn't all have to always be just letters. There can be a combination. So look here now. H is the subject of this formula. What have I got to do? I've got to remove this E and I've got to remove this number, the number 5. Which one do I get rid of first? I get rid of minus e first. How do I get rid of minus e? I add e to both sides. So 5x equals h plus e, because I've added e to both sides. Finally, how do I get rid of times by 5? Do the complete opposite to times by 5, which is divide by 5. So x equals h plus e divided by 5. And if you want to, you could bracket that expression just to make sure that we're definitely dividing the whole expression by 5.